So I often get asked the question, which yoga is best for me, and particularly from beginners. And I'd like to try to answer that question a little bit today by first talking a little bit through the main different styles of yoga that you get, and a little bit of perhaps what are the similarities, what are the differences. And from there, it's sort of talking about what might be a particular motivation to start yoga and to practice consistently. And from that kind of motivation, linking that with the different styles, helping guide you in terms of which yoga might be best for you. So the biggest similarity across all styles of yoga is where our focal point is. So throughout all styles of yoga, we're focusing in on our breath and in on our body. And through doing that, we're kind of able to hold our attention because we're turning our focus inwards and away from other thoughts and feelings. Now, if we're looking at the biggest difference that you see across these styles of yoga, that really comes from the way that the yoga practice is set up. So you have some styles of yoga that are very active with a lot of movement. You have some that are maybe somewhere in the middle, and some styles where you're either completely still or spending long periods of time in one position. Now, if we start by looking at some of the active styles of yoga, so the two kind of main styles that may come to mind are Ashtanga yoga and Vinyasa yoga. With both of these styles, there's a lot of dynamic movement where we're moving one breath per movement, and then we might be in between holding certain postures for around 5 breaths, so for around 30 seconds, and then we kind of from there would move on to the next pose. Many of these poses are working on our flexibility and stretching particular muscles, but there's also a little bit of development here of strength. So we're engaging and stabilizing the body, particularly as we're holding certain postures for several breaths. And this makes those practices pretty active and dynamic if you compare it to something like meditation where your body is totally in stillness. The main difference between Ashtanga and Vinyasa yoga is that Ashtanga yoga follows a specific sequence. So there's a specific series that you practice the postures in. There's specific vinyasas. So here the name Vinyasa means counted movement that you'll follow, which with specific linkages to your breath. And that can be in some ways pretty nice because you then get to learn the sequence. Some of the other nice things about it is that you're practicing the same postures consistently, so that can help your body kind of improve at the way that you're approaching those postures. It can help you notice a little bit how practicing the same posture over a period of time might feel different either in your body or in your breathing or approach kind of mindset. And then with Vinyasa yoga, we'll typically be using different sequences. So rather than always practicing a series of postures in the same order, you'll be perhaps in one practice having a particular focal point. So that focal point might be building up to a particular peak posture, so a kind of challenging pose, which might be something like a standing balance. It could be some sort of deeper back bend or forward bend, or it might be that you've got kind of a theme that perhaps you're still doing a balanced yoga practice, but there's a little bit more focus perhaps on either opening the hips or maybe opening the shoulders. If we're wanting to find a practice that's a little bit less fast in terms of movement, perhaps a little bit less focused on strength, then you might come to a style of yoga like Hatha yoga and slow flow. So for these styles, there is still some movement, there is still some engagement of the muscles, but less than you would find in Vinyasa and Ashtanga. So that makes these styles of yoga really great for beginners, gives you a little bit more time to explore the postures and get familiar with them before perhaps working at a faster pace or with more challenging poses. So in some of the more gentle forms of yoga, so really thinking of things like gentle yoga, like yin yoga, you'll find this also if you're doing breath work in pranayama or mindfulness meditation, the body is really still for much longer periods of time. Now you might still be in a yoga posture in something like gentle yoga and yin, and we may use some props and we may stay there for several minutes. So really much more focused on gently opening the body than kind of moving dynamically and also building strength. And this can be really nice if you're looking a little bit more for relaxation, if either your body is feeling a little stressed, tight, exhausted, or maybe you're quite physically active with other sports and you're just looking for something to release a bit of tension. Yeah, you can kind of see the different styles of yoga can be suitable for different people and with people that have different motivations for practicing yoga. But I'd also like to say that you don't necessarily have to pick only one style of yoga, so you can also see a little bit day to day how you're feeling and maybe selecting a yoga practice that suits a little bit your mood and needs for that day. So for example, if you spent a lot of time sitting and you're feeling like you really need to move your body, then perhaps on that day, selecting something that's quite dynamic and active feels really appropriate for your body. And then another day, maybe you've been on a long walk or a long cycle, perhaps you've had a day where you just haven't slept very well and you feel quite low on energy, then perhaps one of these more gentle styles of yoga is a lot more suitable. So you might choose to do some breathing and pranayama. You might choose a little bit more of a gentle yoga practice. So yeah, that's a little bit of a quick run through the different styles of yoga and what type of yoga might be suitable for you. I'd suggest to really explore also what type of yoga that you enjoy. So for me, that's the main thing, is that all different sorts of yoga can be really beneficial for you. So it's all about then finding what works for you at this moment, remembering that might change, of course, over time, and then perhaps just giving that some time to practice. So if you really enjoy doing Vinyasa yoga, then by all means go ahead and practice that. Well, if you're someone that perhaps one day wants to do some gentle yoga, the next day wants to practice something active like Ashtanga, then that can also work for you in your schedule. If you're wanting to get some more tips about really understanding what your motivation is for practicing yoga, understanding how you can find a little bit more consistency and planning to practice yoga at home regularly, then do check out my Yoga at Home guide. You can find a link for it in the comments. It's completely free. And there's also there a few short practices that you can do around 10 or 15 minutes to help really integrate yoga into your daily life. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.